Glad you could be here. We are joined, as always, by Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, a James Beard Award nominee. The group includes Rustico, 2 locations, Alexandria and Ballston. Also, Evening Star Cafe and Planet Wine in the Del Rey neighborhood. Greg, it is always good to see you.
See you too.
What have we got on tap this week?
So, Trogs Brewing Company, now of Hershey, Pennsylvania, where the new brewery is. It's a few years old now, but a fantastic place. So if you have children, know that it's more fun to go there than it was before.
Dump them off at the amusement park with 5 chocolate bars in each hand.
And then go see a Hershey Bears game afterwards.
We'll have Grandma watch after them. Probably good.
They make awesome stuff, obviously. Good friends of ours here. Started back in '97. The Trogner brothers, Chris and John, just crushing it, making great stuff. I know you love the Nugget Nectar that comes out every February. Perpetual IPA is fantastic. Sunshine Pills, they make great stuff.
Just great brewers.
All great quality stuff and local for us, so super fresh. Interesting and exciting times for them. They got a cork and cage filler, so now they're going to have a whole line of beers that are only packaged in cork and cage bottles, re-fermented in bottle. You see what that gives us, really natural carbonation, really creamy effervescence, builds a nice rocky head like you'll find in classic Belgian ales. And so the first beer, naturally, that they decided to release in these 375 milliliter or 12.7 ounce bottles is LaGrave. I guess referring to the seriousness of the flavor. It is a classic Belgian style triple. Delicious example of the style, golden in color, very simple beer. 1 malt, Pilsner malt, just blonde in color. 1 hop, I think they use some northern brewer from Germany, if I'm not mistaken. So, a little bit of an herbal character, not too bitter, semi-dry finish. And then, water, cane sugar to feed that yeast to get the alcohol up without leaving too much residual malt sweetness. And, they just ferment at a warm temp with an Abbey Ale yeast, and it's a spectacular beer.
Smelled great. Sitting on the dock with a fishing pole in hand.
If you drink too many, you'll be falling into the water.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hello.
8.5, I believe. No, 8% alcohol.
Doesn't taste like it either, does it?
No, it's delicious. And the natural carbonation just sets it apart. I mean, it's got this creamy effervescence. That foam really drives all the fermentation flavors out. I think of triples as always having a great spicy note, touches of banana, pear, apricot, clove, spice, and almost like a cotton candy or a general kind of candy quality to it, like a Necco wafer or something like that. It's really delicious, but also dangerously drinkable.
We have a Irish friend, a mutual colleague, who I think would like this very much.
It's an incredible, incredible beer. I love it very much. So the other thing that's cool, is it's really, there's been a lot of Belgian-style beers made in America, lots of triples, and they're all good, but there's a classic quality you find in like Westmalle triple, which is actually hoppier and drier than this from Belgium that you don't typically see, and I think this beer is really elevating the. It's very reminiscent, redolent of the Belgian examples I love.
I just love the Pils taste, and is that from the malt?
Yeah, it's just 100% Pilsner malt. I mean, it's literally the same kind of malt that you'd use with the Pilsner, but much bigger, obviously, and more golden in color. It's fantastic. The other thing I mentioned, Westmalle triple. Really cool, quick story about the triple style. There's a guy named Henrique Verlinden who was a great brewer in Belgium in the 1930s and 20s. He worked at a brewery called Dre Linden, and we think Michael Jackson, the beer writer, often said that he created the first Belgian strong blonde kind of triple style there, but then recreated it at the Schlagmulder brewery, which makes a beer called Whitcap Pater, which is now called Whitcap Triple. So some people think that was the first triple ever brewed, but also he worked closely with the monks at Westmalle to develop a beer they called Super Beer, believe it or not. And then in 1956, they rebranded the beer as Westmalle Triple, adding more hops to it as well. So this is a relatively recent style, though we associate it with monastic brewing, which has been going on for thousands of years. It's a relatively recent style.
I haven't had any in a long time, but I'm a huge fan of Malure 10.
Malure 10, yeah. A little bit stronger.
You can taste the alcohol more in that.
Yeah, it's boozier.
Well, this is dangerous. That seems eminently drinkable.
But they also, Malure 10 also has that beautiful bottle re-fermentation like this stuff.
And they're making it here. That's very,
and that's the last thing I wanted to say. A lot of times, I mean, with beers that sell really quickly, like Westmalle, it stays relatively fresh. And these have great pretty long shelf lives, especially when they're bottle conditioned, because the CO2 building up from the fermentation keeps oxygen out. However, one of the risks of triples that come here from overseas is if they're left out in the open air, light striking them, or if they get hot, cold, or just sit on the shelves too long. I'd say 4, 5, 6 months. They tend to oxidize, and you lose that kind of cleanness that you talked about. You lose that fruit and spice, and what instead you get is more of like, it's not bad, but it's more of like a sherry, toffee quality that I think is not as great as this kind of bright fruit and spice note we get here.
Now, wondering what we would pair this with, I'll see if I'm wrong. It seems like it'd go with some really bold flavors.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was thinking the other day, I was thinking about foods that people associate with beer, possibly incorrectly, and we always think of like pizza and beer, right? But that actually comes from a time when you were drinking like flavorless, effervescent buttermilk or something like that.
Yellow fizz.
Yeah, exactly. It would cut into the richness and just wash it all down, right? That's also why it was so good with like spicy food. But hoppy bitter beer actually fights with the acidity in tomatoes and sometimes comes off strangely with basil quality. So I'm always kind of thinking about what are some elevated beers we could do with pizza, and this I love. Enough sweetness to tame the acidity of the tomato, a little bit of a creamy richness for that cheese, and then the spicy qualities are delicious with basil, like on a margarita pizza. Taking that another step, you could do pesto with it, which would be delicious. Cured meats, salt and spice like prosciutto, so prosciutto pizza would be delicious as well.
Or charcuterie on that, that would work too.
Anything, and you'll see that classically in Belgium, like the charcuterie plates and triple go hand in hand.
It's dynamite. Will be buying when I see in the store. Greg, thank you as always.
Thank you.
Everyone, please always do drink responsibly. Be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.